Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. Whether you're an investor, an educator, or a parent, understanding why George Gilder matters today might completely flip how you look at the future of our economy. I'm so excited you're here because we're exploring a truly fascinating framework. One that takes the macroeconomics of the 1980s and connects them directly to kindergarten brain development. I know, it sounds like a massive leap, right? But as we unpack this source material, you're going to see how early childhood development and national monetary policy might actually be two sides of the exact same coin.
Okay, let's dive right into this. This quote really captures the absolute core premise of George Gilder's framework. You see, rather than the traditional view of wealth as, accumulated physical resources or just circulating fiat currency, Gilder posits that true wealth is fundamentally rooted in empowering individuals. It's all about the entrepreneur who risks capital and ideas in service to others. That initial act of giving, of creating value, is what actually unleashes human creativity and builds real prosperity.
So, to see how all of this connects, here is our roadmap for today. We'll explore 1. Gilder's economic vision. 2. Discovering brain gold. 3. Backing money with potential. 4. The power of private kindness. And 5. A ready community. Section 1. Gilder's economic vision.
The framework we're exploring today draws on a really powerful trilogy of books by George Gilder. It starts with Wealth and Poverty, which establishes the idea we just talked about, that giving empowers, as opposed to top-down redistribution. Then it evolves in Knowledge and Power, shifting the focus from physical capital over to information. Gilder argues that the economy is essentially an information system, meaning knowledge is the ultimate source of wealth. And finally, The Scandal of Money, which critiques post-1971 fiat currency. In this book, Gilder's theory argues that sound money should reflect irreversible time, productive work, and actual value creation, not arbitrary fiat that creates volatility and just stifles real economic growth.
So the crucial point here is understanding a concept Gilder actually borrows from physics: entropy. In his framework, think of entropy as static on a radio dial. It literally destroys the signal of knowledge. It's disorder, it's noise, it's the waste of potential. Gilder argues that to allow high-information innovations and entrepreneurial surprises to emerge, you absolutely require low-entropy, stable systems. Think about reliable institutions, the rule of law, and sound money. These are the predictable carriers that allow knowledge and prosperity to flourish without being lost to the static of manipulation or instability. Well, now that we understand Gilder's macroeconomic view that knowledge is the ultimate wealth, we kind of have to ask, where does that knowledge actually begin?
Section 2. Discovering brain gold.
We're pivoting from abstract economics to human biology now, and the data here is just staggering. Roughly 90% of a human's brain architecture is established by age 6 or 7. 90%. We're talking about the critical synaptic connections, the foundational networks for language, math readiness, and executive function. This is an absolutely irreversible, biologically critical period. According to the developmental neuroscience cited in the sources, time wasted in this window creates lasting entropy, and that means poor long-term outcomes and a massive waste of human potential that simply cannot be fixed later on.
So how do we actually prevent that biological static? Well, this is where models like Montessori come in, and exactly where early childhood education enters the economic equation. The sources highlight that these prepared environments for children aged 0 to 6 act as the ultimate low-entropy carriers. Through hands-on, child-directed learning, they foster deep concentration, independence, and a real sense of order. By building these foundational neural networks before that window closes, they minimize biological entropy. In Gilder's terms, they create the stable, ordered individual carriers that will later produce high-information innovations in the broader economy. So, if a child's brain development is the ultimate source of future economic knowledge, how do we actually go about valuing it?
Section 3. Backing money with potential.
The source material introduces a really fascinating framework from the USA Positive Expectations Project. They basically fuse Gilder's macroeconomic theories directly with early neuroscience to create a concept they call brain gold. This framework neutrally proposes treating these early synaptic developmental outcomes as high-value, scarce, irreversible soft assets. The whole idea is that 0 to 6 brain developments represent real, time-bound value creation that literally cannot be faked. Therefore, just like physical gold reserves, these soft assets could theoretically underpin real private sector monetary value.
Here's how this actually monetizes potential mathematically. First, it calculates the present value of positive expectations, which is essentially the financial value of a child being fully prepared for school. Second, it projects the lifetime earnings differentials between the best educational outcomes and the worst, bringing all that future value all the way back to age 6. Third, based on these outcomes, a present value is assigned ranging from $0 up to $750,000 per child. Finally, the project proposes issuing USA Values Debit Bonds, which are blockchain-tracked instruments backed by these high-quality early learning outcomes to serve as private sector monetary reserves. It's a system entirely based on valuing early potential as a tangible economic asset. But how do we actually spark the creation of this brain gold on a community level?
Section 4. The power of private kindness.
And this brilliantly illustrates a core distinction made in the source material between two distinct types of societal action. On one side, we have individual or faith-based kindness. This is totally voluntary, operating above the bare minimum of the law. It's a pure gift driven by conscience and relationship. Now, on the other side is government kindness. As the sources point out, this is constrained by law, it has to be uniform, and ultimately it relies on taxation, which carries an element of legal coercion. Gilder's framework strongly champions the voluntary, private side of this equation, arguing that true wealth creation and moral good come from voluntary giving rather than constrained government mandates.
To show the incredible power of that private giving, the sources provide a stunning real-world metric. Just consider the impact of the Tangelo Park program. Businessman Harris Rosen made a private philanthropic gift to a struggling Orlando neighborhood. He funded free preschool for all 2-, 3-, and 4-year-olds, plus full college scholarships for high school graduates. This pure private sector kindness skyrocketed the neighborhood's high school graduation rates from roughly 25% to nearly 100%. I mean, it is a staggering transformation of an entire community, and it was all achieved without a single government mandate.
Building on that proof of concept, the source outlines a proposed funding mechanism. It works like this. Private individuals step up first to give resources for early childhood outcomes. Then, a private financial risk and guarantee vehicle, referred to as the RRFC, speculates on the long-term returns of those outcomes, putting their own skin in the game. Crucially, any central validation or government backstops occur only after the real value in those children's development has been firmly proven by the private sector. This aligns perfectly with Gilder's ideals of entrepreneurial giving. Private risk-taking has to go first to generate real value.
Section 5. A ready community.
When we pull all these threads together, we get what the sources call a Gilder-aligned community, built on 4 pillars: education, economics, emotions, and ethics. This is a community that values real knowledge and human capital over fiat currency manipulation. It maintains low entropy systems, meaning stable families, reliable institutions, and the rule of law. It relies heavily on private sector innovation and voluntary kindness rather than government dependency. And ultimately, it rewards ethical productivity and the kind of fierce independence fostered in those early, crucial 0 to 6 years.
We've covered an immense amount of ground today, bridging 1980s macroeconomics directly with the neuroscience of a kindergartner. George Gilder argued that wealth is knowledge, and entropy destroys it. We've seen how the early childhood window is the absolute most critical period to build that knowledge and defeat biological entropy. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. If true wealth is indeed knowledge, and 90% of a brain's architecture is formed by age 6, shouldn't the very foundation of our economic policy start at age 0? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible potential of the human mind.